Let's look at the second passage. Step 1 is to read the passage and acquire the main idea, which you can pause the video and try to go through every line and find out. Step 2 is to read the question. You need to understand the category the question belongs to. Either it could be a general question or a specific question. And step 3 is to analyze each choice and then land up on the right choice. Let's begin reading the second passage. First question, it can be inferred from the passage that new additive Z oxide, option A, is still in the design stages, option B exceeds environmental guidelines, option C is a compound found in nature, and option D can produce carbon monoxide. You have to understand the meaning of the question here. If not, there is a chance that you would rush to pick an answer choice as D. In fact, choice D, the most popular wrong choice, I would say. Why? Because there is a reference to new additive Z oxide in the second paragraph. So probably you would tend to guess that this is a specific question and you would look for it. Yes, to an extent, the reference to new additive Z oxide is in the second paragraph, but you have to observe much closer. Second paragraph, third sentence. In computer models, it has been shown that the Z oxide will break down as fuel is consumed, yielding an extra oxygen molecule which would then attach itself to the carbon monoxide being produced during combustion to form relatively benign carbon dioxide. So if you understand last sentence in the second paragraph, you can find out that carbon monoxide being produced, which means it's a part of the process, and the end product is carbon dioxide. Since you have a reference to carbon monoxide, the chances are maximum for you to pick carbon monoxide. Please don't try to match words or phrases in reading comprehension questions. If you could read more than once, you can easily understand that carbon monoxide is produced during the process. It results in carbon dioxide. Therefore, we can eliminate D. Now, I said you need to understand this question. Why do I say so? Because many a time we would miss the keyword of the question. Here, the keyword of the question is it can be inferred. Please note you are on an inference question. Either the question may ask you what is the inference of the passage, or they may ask you what does the author imply, or they may ask you it can be inferred. Look at these keywords. Either they may ask you what is the inference of the passage, or they may ask you what does the author imply, or the question may it can be inferred. So the keyword in the question, whenever you find any of these two words in the question, either imply or infer, inference, inferred, they are all forms of the word infer. When you are on such type of question, please understand this is a reasoning question without directly conveying the message. For example, you watch or observe the way politician answers his question, or whenever he or she is questioned about his or her political promise, the way he would answer would most probably an implied answer. He won't give any direct answers. He would say, yes, it's gonna happen, or in next 3 months it will happen, which is an implied answer. For you to understand better, I'll give you the meaning for the word imply and infer. Imply means to convey a message indirectly, to say something. For you to understand it better, I like to give you the meaning for these words, imply and infer. The word imply means to convey a message indirectly, and the word infer means to grasp the implied message. That's why the question formulation is, what does the author imply? And it can be inferred, because implying is done by either the writer or the speaker, and inference can be done either by the listener or the reader, right? So which means both the words imply and infer technically mean the same thing. To put it in simple words, you have to find out what is being conveyed indirectly. If that's the case, the direct indication or the straight clue for such question is answer is hidden. Please keep this in your mind. The moment you find these keywords imply or infer or inference, the immediate understanding is the answer is hidden for such question. So there's no need for me to explain that this type will consume much time, one, and even if it consumes time, the chances are that you may get confused in picking the answer choice. So you can attempt such questions only when your understanding of the text is clear. Coming back to this question, it can be inferred from the passage that the new additive is Z oxide. From the given structure itself, when I say the answer is hidden for these type of questions, you have one easy clue to eliminate wrong choices. That is, we will always eliminate an answer choice that carries explicit or direct information from the text. Because the question meaning itself says the answer is hidden. Therefore, of the 4 answer choices, you can easily eliminate an answer choice which carries direct or explicit information from the text. From that perspective, it would be easy for you to eliminate option D because that carries an answer that is exactly given in the text itself, and that cannot be the answer for an inference question. So you need to pick it from the other 3 choices. Let's start the analysis. Option A says E is still in the design stages. Probably yes, because that's what it suggests. In computer models means certainly it has not yet been released in the market. It has been experimented. It is under research. So possibility of option A being the answer is brighter. Let's reserve it. Option B exceeds environmental guidelines. When we say, of course, this phrase helps us to analyze both option A and option B. The very phrase in computer models itself says that it has not been launched in the market. When it has not been launched or when it is not available in the market, we cannot say it exceeds environmental guidelines. Therefore, option B can be eliminated. Look at option C. It's a compound found in nature. We know that this is not a natural compound. We are talking about new additive, which means that this is artificial. This is completely man-made. So option C is also eliminated. The right choice is option A. New additive Z oxide is still in the design stages. Second question, which of the following best describes the organization of the passage? So while you read the question, you can easily understand this is a general question, which means you have to understand the passage entirely. Only then you can move on to the answer choices. I'd like to give you one more tip for general type questions. For you to answer general questions more accurately, you can rely on analysis of answer choices. That is, with the help of your first glance of the passage, you can move to find out reasons to eliminate wrong options, which we're going to try now for this question. Let's start with option A. A problem is presented and then 2 possible solutions are presented. Looks to be right. Let's reserve. Option B. The author denies one theme, then introduces tangential theme. The author nowhere denies anything, which means sure, this is a wrong option. Option C. A theory is developed, illustrated with examples. There aren't any examples given. Eliminate option C. Option D. The author introduces a specific case in order to make a general point. Just now for the previous option, we made it very clear that there isn't any examples being presented. When there isn't any examples being presented, of course, it also means there isn't any case study being done. So D can also be eliminated and the right choice is option A. Since we are on this type of question for the first time, that is while we deal with the organization of the passage, if you wonder how to get it, the author begins with a problem being presented. A large amount of current environmental research focuses on. So the current research focuses on reducing the excessive pollution caused by the IC engines. A problem has been presented. If you look at the first line of the second paragraph, which says efforts to improve the formulation have taken 2 directions. And the passage indeed explains these 2 directions, which means the solution being taken to address this problem, which means option A is the accurate answer. Third question of the passage. With which of the following statements would the author of the passage most likely agree? Would the author most likely agree? The question structure itself explains for all the 4 options, you would not get direct clue. You have to get it from your understanding, because the question says would the author most likely agree means These four options are the ideas presented in these four options are implicit. They are not directly stated. Let's move on to the options. While you're on such reasoning questions, or while you're trying to answer questions for which there isn't any direct references in the text provided, you have to rely more on analysis. That's the reason I insist on analyzing options for all the questions and more specifically for reading comprehension. Option A. Stabilizers and anti-gumming agents in gasoline have significantly contributed to the environmental pollution problem. There has been reference to stabilizers and anti-gumming agents in the last line of the first paragraph. To this is added a myriad of other compounds, anti-oxidizing agents, stabilizers, anti-gumming agents, which says the reference in the first paragraph state that these are all steps being taken to bring down the excessive pollution, because that's how the passage opens. The current environmental research focuses on reducing the excessive pollution. It doesn't say that these agents, be it stabilizers or anti-gumming agents, have significantly contributed to environmental pollution problem. They have been used to bring down or lessen the pollution. They don't contribute significantly. Therefore, option A is a wrong choice. Option B, scientific discoveries in fuel formulations may someday help to alleviate environmental pollution caused by automobiles. Yes, if you read the last sentence of the passage, option B seems to be right, because the author is hopeful. He is very much optimistic to say that the solution will be found in near future. So probably B can be reserved. Look at option C. New formulations of gasoline, while interesting scientific advances, will never reduce. The reference is in the same sentence, that is the last sentence of the passage, wherein the author hopes that there will be a solution, whereas option C contradicts the idea. Therefore, C can be eliminated. The author hasn't concluded that the solution will never be found. C gets eliminated. Look at option D. Z-oxide will be an even more effective additive to gasoline if it's broken down into fractions. You have to be cautious here, because you would be most likely fall into the trap of this keyword. You have the word fractions in the passage and you have the same word appearing in option. Please beware. Stay alert. If your practice is limited, you would jump on to option D, stating that there has been reference to fractions in the passage and there has been reference to fractions in option D. The question asks you what would the author most likely agree, thereby he must have been talked about fractions. These are all your assumptions while you answer these type of questions, and that's the reason why they set this trap. Please stay away. Read what it says. Option D says Z-oxide will be even more effective additive to gasoline if it's broken down into fractions. In the previous question I said there have been two possible solutions being discussed. One is breaking down of Z-oxide, that is presented in the second paragraph. Another one is separation of oil into what are called its fractions. So these two ideas are entirely different, and option D merges these two ideas into one, and that is the trap which the examiner has smartly set. If you could read through it, if you could look through it, you can easily eliminate. Therefore, the right choice is option B. I would say this passage is very simple, and of course you would have found it for yourself that this is pretty much simple for you to read and understand. Irrespective of its simplicity, I would still recommend you to follow the steps. Step 1 is to read the passage and get the main idea. Step 2 is to understand the meaning of the question. Step 3 is to analyze each choice. Now, for this passage, what is the main idea? The main idea of this passage is the author discusses mountaineering. Why some men like to climb mountains, the difficulty in climbing the mountains, and the feel that one gets after climbing a mountain have been discussed in the passage. Perhaps to put it in a nutshell, we can say this passage discusses mountaineering. And from our understanding, we can understand the word mountaineering in this passage refers to a sport. Well, as I said, the passage is very much simple for you to understand. So, the moment you read the question, you will find that you get answers without taking much effort. In fact, few questions in this passage carry direct reference in the text itself. Let's start answering the questions. Question number 1. Some men like to climb mountains because we have a reference to this idea in the last sentence of the passage. They had wanted to get that feeling of freedom that one has after climbing a difficult mountain, which suggests the right choice for this question is option B. Some men like to climb mountains because they wish to experience a wonderful feeling. Second question, climbing mountains is often difficult because, even for this question, we have a direct reference. In the second line, that has been given, paths are usually very steep, or usually that's a clue, so that is applicable for mountains in general. Therefore, the answer for this question is option D. Climbing mountains is often difficult because paths are steep and uneven. Third question, which of the following, according to the author, makes one feel godlike? Here, you must understand the meaning of the question. The question asks you to identify among the 4 options that would make one feel godlike. So that is very much common. According to the author, that also you have to keep it in your mind. You have to go by the idea or the information presented in the passage. Without any difficulty, you would easily eliminate option A and option C. There isn't any reference for us to conclude neither the steep path nor playing football makes one feel godlike. You would stuck between option B and option D. Most likely, you would conclude option D as the answer, but you have to be alert. Option D is most popular wrong choice. I like to explain the reason. From the passage or from the information given, we can understand the word mountaineering is a sport. If you choose the answer as option D in the mountaineering, which it would result in controversy, as if it would mean playing or indulging in mountaineering makes one feel like, whereas that's not the case with other sport. In fact, you have an option C that says playing football, which means we know that it is not indulgence in sport. It's not participating in a sport. It's beyond that. That is one logic to eliminate option D. There is one more logic which you can pick it from the text itself. You can refer to the 4th line in the text. Men talk about conquering a mountain. When we discuss mountaineering or from the passage or from the information provided, we can understand this passage discusses mountaineering, and we do understand the word mountaineering means a sport that deals with climbing mountains. If that's the case, the author could have used the word men talk about climbing a mountain. Why does he talk about conquering a mountain? Because it's not about climbing the mountain, it is a feel that one gets. This word serves as a major clue for this question, and the right choice is option B. According to the author, wish to conquer makes one feel godlike. Here I want to make an additional note. You would have experienced in this passage particularly that the passage is very much simple. Even you would have answered questions that were quite simple. In fact, you would have answered questions that were indeed a cakewalk. But what I want to wish here is, even in such simple passages, we can bring in reasoning questions like this. You would feel reading the passage, answer the question, or understand the question entirely effortless, but still it would require your analytical ability to choose the right choice. That's exactly the reason why I brought in this passage for discussion here. We have one more question in this passage. Let's move on. Mountaineering is not a very popular sport like football or cricket because. Please understand the meaning of the question. The question asks you why mountaineering is not so popular. And a candidate with limited exposure to reading practice is most likely to choose the choices option A, which is indeed the most popular wrong choice. I would say why. If you conclude option A, that is, mountaineering is not so popular because it may take many hours or days, your passage doesn't say that as a reason for popularity of the sport. In fact, read the first sentence. Just as some men like to play football or cricket, so some men like to climb mountains. There it stops. The passage nowhere discusses the popularity of any sport for that matter. Here the question asks you, mountaineering is not a very popular sport like football or cricket. Since these two words occur in the question football or cricket, if you haven't practiced well or if you are new to this reading comprehension exercise, you would try to jump on to that clue that is having a reference to the words football or cricket, or you would match these two words in the text and probably you may pick option A. Please don't. Here the passage doesn't discuss the popularity of any sport, let alone mountaineering. Therefore, the answer for this question is option D, none of the above. Is it surprising? Perhaps yes, because while you are on reading comprehension questions exercises in your earlier days, there are lesser chance for you to pick none of the above as your option because your answer choice would be structured in such a way that you would be very much inclined to choose a choice that would have any direct or indirect reference to the text. Very, very rarely you would go for a choice that would say none of the above. And this is what competitive examinations test. When you have questions with none of the above options, it's a usual or a natural tendency that to omit D option completely. No one would look at D option or no one would care about that option, and you would try to assume yourself that answer would be either A or B or C. The reason is very less exposure. The reason is perhaps you wouldn't have experienced a real competitive examination question paper. So at least henceforth, when you have a question which carries a none of the above option, do consider that as an answer choice 1, and you would pick none of the above option as your choice when you're confirmed that the references provided in the other 3 options have not stated in the text. As simple as that.